You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Welcome to Force 13 Live with more coverage on Typhoon Hinnamnor. Weakened quite substantially throughout the last 12 hours, and the storm is looking quite a bit dishevelled. Wind speed still of around 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 946 millibars, with scope for possible intensification again as it moves back northwards. The main question is, how long will it stall? And the longer it does stall, the more chance that it will weaken further and become less of a threat. However, it has grown in size quite a bit and is going to do that a lot more when it in the next 24 to 48 hours. And by the time it enters the East China Sea, it will cover the whole area, with tropical storm force conditions likely from the east coast of China to maybe as far as Shikoku. There's still quite a lot of uncertainty about the storm's track and intensity, and we're here to tell you all about it on our stream tonight. My name is Nathan Foy in the studio, and of course we also have our team. This hour we have David, Joey, Danielle, Gizmo, and Jose and Marlene. Hello to all of you, good evening.
Hello.
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 Nice to have you all on board. Here I am in the studio in case you wanted to see me, but I don't think anyone really does. And so we throw it back to the imagery of the actual storm. We're just about to update some of our displays. Our left bar isn't up to date yet, but we'll fix that in just a moment, as well as our little inset there, which isn't quite on shot. But we'll sort those little issues momentarily. Right then, first of all, let's see, who shall we talk to first? I guess we'll throw it to Joey first, because you were here with us, as well as many other people in the room right now, last night, our time, and we were watching this storm moving south-southwestwards, and we were going to see how far it would go. It went pretty far in the end, enough to give Signal 1 warnings to the Batanes Islands.
Yep, and since then the storm has rather thankfully degraded quite significantly due to some very strong shear that it's encountering, and so that's a very good sign for some of the closest islands to the storm. They may not see as strong of an impact as we were expecting, and it's clearly gone further south than expectations, and that's visible clearly. That effect is being clearly felt on the islands, where we've been looking at a couple of webcams and conditions aren't as severe as they were expected to be at this point. There hasn't been as much rainfall falling in the islands as expected, so that is a very good sign that possibly the impacts from the system could be a little less than we were expecting, but regardless, it's a very dangerous system. We'll still drop quite significant amounts of rainfall, we'll still bring strong winds, and don't forget the storm surge that might come with this system as well.
Quite substantial, that storm surge may well be. Some of you may have seen the left bar before showing Category 5 still. That was the old bar. It's just been replaced, so you'll see the new information shortly. Let's go to your screen, Joey, with that webcam, which, if I remember rightly, was in Ishigaki.
Yeah, this is the same one that we were looking at yesterday. Thankfully, it's still up. Yes, this is in Ishigaki, and as I said, conditions here don't seem to be that bad. It's basically the same as yesterday. Winds quite moderate. Rain, sort of drizzle at this moment in time, and in fact, a couple of minutes before we went live, the sun was peeking through the clouds at this location. So it's not too bad yet.
Now, rainfall expectations from this storm generally haven't changed since our update yesterday, but one or two areas where it really has changed is this area. It is looking more and more likely that the storm will track near or over these islands, near Ishigaki or Miyakojima. Landfall or not, it will lead to very high rain amounts, and we are now expecting for Miyakojima possibly 16 or 17 inches, which is over 400 millimeters of rain now. So those numbers are going up for that area, and the chances of strong winds and some of that heavy rain continuing to rise a little bit further for Taiwan as well. So all of these areas mentioned look like they're going to be in for the roughest ride from the storm. We'll talk about Korean interests later on as well. It's a very difficult one to forecast for them, whether the storm will continue this weakening trend. I mean, the conditions are doing a number on it right now, more than we were expecting, as you mentioned. But interestingly, not as much, or not yet, on par with what the JTWC was expecting. Do you think they've outfoxed us here? They're expecting more weakening than I think anyone else was, and it's almost done that.
Yeah, I think when it came to their forecast, they were saying something that we necessarily weren't. And they nearly are on the ball with the amount of weakening that it's done at this moment in time. But their latest cone has it re-strengthening in the South China Sea. They have put it further east than the cone that we were looking at yesterday, where it was in the area where the sea surface temperatures weren't as high. But so now it is further east than that, and they expect it to get up to, I think, 115 knots in the East China Sea.
Oh yes,
That's
they're
what its
calling for that
latest cone.
Category 4 peak again.
And I'm not sure, but I think they are calling for a landfall somewhere on South Korea as well.
Just about.
Yeah, latest cone.
Extremely towards the southeastern extremity, and that would be a Category 3 landfall. I mean, that is a pretty big deal. We've also got Danielle with us. Why don't you tell us your thoughts on the storm? You're showing us some of your imagery as well.
Well, definitely that eye has gone to waste now. I was seeing that degrade at the time of this morning. I actually didn't know it was being impacted by shear until literally just now, till I looked with my eye sockets. But yeah, that's a good thing. However, I feel that shear will slowly move away. I think that's where that forecast for re-strengthening will somewhat happen. I cannot obviously say for certainty if it will or will not happen, but I will say it's likely right after the shear moves away, at least a little ways from the storm, that it will rebuild its sheared side.
I imagine
quick.
sea surface temperature's still pretty decent. What might prevent it or slow it down, though, is it's becoming an enormous storm, and its huge size could be a barrier to significant strengthening. And the more you look at that satellite imagery right now, the worse it's getting at the moment. It's almost giving up. I mean, it's in danger of becoming an exposed Category 3 storm, which gives me Humberto vibes from the Atlantic a few years ago.
Yeah, it's literally... Nathan, now as you mention it, interestingly, I am seeing a weakening on that eye wall.
Yeah.
There's a little crack that it could be doing what you're saying could happen.
I don't suppose
it's trying to fight it, but it's giving up very quickly.
I was notified a bit ago that there was some microwave imagery that came through, and it showed that the eye wall was breaking up and extremely tilted. I think it was a couple of minutes ago or an hour or so ago. when that came through. Yeah, Danielle, if you'd like to pull that up.
Well,
But-
I'm looking at infrared quick, and that's what we're seeing right now.
And Joey, you're showing us another great view.
This is in Miyakojima. So obviously this is the area that you were mentioning could get quite badly hit when the storm moves back northward. So we'll be keeping an eye on this in the coming days. But as you can see right now, definitely doesn't look too bad. Blue skies behind the camera, I'm guessing.
I would like to point out that only one typhoon in history has made landfall in South Korea as a Category 3, which is what the JTWC are forecasting. That was Typhoon Sarah in 1959, a Category 5 storm that moved through, actually made landfall on Miyakojima as a Category 5, and then pushed through to make a Category 3 landfall pretty much directly over Busan in the southeastern part of South Korea. So that could be your guiding point for a potential worst case scenario, and we'll take anything less than that, as we might compare that as it moves along through the East China Sea. But that's that viewpoint there in Miyakojima. Let's go back to Daniel's screen. You're showing some visible now.
Yes, daylight's showing up on that side of the world, and, well, kind of clearly obvious that you can see at least the outer edge of the low-level center. There.
Yep.
So that's a little concerning for the storm's structure. We'll keep an eye on that to see if it goes back even more. However, I bet that thing's gonna fight to keep its eye wall in place.
Here's some rapid scan geocolor imagery of the storm right now as well, as we've already seen a couple of times. Oh, there's some imagery that isn't correctly aligned, so we'll fix that in just a moment. But there it is once again. If you've got any questions for us, we are ready and waiting to answer your calls. Start your message with Force 13 all in text.
We do have a question that I've seen from a tropical storm, Bulletin. What category will Hinnamnor be when it goes near Japan, and would 11E become a hurricane?
Well, I mean, Japan is a lot of areas here. Through Miyakojima, it will probably be a Category 3, I would guess. Maybe Category 2. And after that, I don't think Japan... no, they will get typhoon force winds in the western islands from Kyushu and those minor islands nearby. They'll get typhoon conditions, but I don't think they'll get Category 3 conditions. As for 11E, that will not become a hurricane. And questions about the Atlantic storms as well. We'll have a little look over that area a little bit later on. For those who are unaware, Tropical Storm Danielle formed earlier today. I believe we had an update on it on the Force 13 main channel. So if you want some information on that, take a look at that update. And whether 91E will become our next storm, it is still a distinct possibility. The chances haven't gone down very much. So, you know, interesting. But most of our stream will be here covering Hinnamnor until our tropical weather bulletin, which will follow in an hour and a half. So we'll keep focusing on this. I'm not really sure what much there is to say today compared to yesterday, because there's not really been that much of a change apart from just a little shift in the models. Go
I
ahead.
mean, look, I am looking at David's stream. He's moved it on now, but I was looking at the sea surface temperatures, and it does seem like it's moved into slightly warmer sea surface temperatures, going towards 31, possibly going to a very small spot of 32 Celsius waters as it's moved south.
David, we're
Just
on
fix
your
that
stream
quality.
there. Tell us about it.
Excuse me. So basically the positioning from where this storm is at quite aligns with the warm temperatures that are currently located 31 degrees Celsius. There's a very a tiny dot of 32 Celsius. But this is overall in a very warm SST area. The thing that's killing is just its size and shear, I believe. I haven't gotten a chance to look at the storm really good, but and here's the cone.
And interesting that they still have it as a typhoon well beyond the Korean Peninsula as well. Large wind fields. It may not look as large on this map than it did on previous maps, but I'm pretty sure they've zoomed out on this forecast map now compared to earlier forecasts. So large wind fields. I'm trying to get, let me find out how many miles on each side. I would imagine it's around the area in the region of 250 nautical miles near its peak size. Yep, in fact it is exactly that. 250 nautical miles in the southeast quadrant is what they're expecting in 36 hours. So by that point,
massive in this one.
yep, and by that point it will be just about entering the East China Sea. So that's when the JTWC expect it to be largest. And then it will very slowly start shrinking up until landfall, and then extratropical transition will probably have its way with the storm. You'll see at the bottom of the screen every so often the percent chances of tropical storm force winds in relevant areas, as well as the expected rainfall totals for large parts of Taiwan and the Ryukyu Islands and into Western Japan and Korea. We're looking at widespread amounts of over 200 and quite a lot over 300 millimeters of rain. More comments here, and this might lead on to a discussion about its current analysis and synopsis of the storm. Does Typhoon Hinnamnor look weaker than 115 miles per hour? I suppose by this point it probably does, if you looked at it out of context without knowing its history. I just wonder what you guys think about its synopsis at the moment, and whether you arrive at the same conclusion with this storm's intensity.
This definitely looks weaker than 115 miles per hour, but I may be mistaken.
I mean, I was also kind of thinking the same thing. By the looks of it on satellite and other imagery, it does look weaker than 115 miles per hour. However, yet again, it does have warm SSTs, the ocean heat content. So it certainly has the stuff where it could be 115 miles per hour, but so far it just looks, its structure doesn't look as good as normal Category 3 typhoons.
You can say that again. Here's a close-up on the water vapor imagery right now as well, and we'll get some more visibles for you in a moment to take a look and see if we can get some close-ups on visible, color visible. I don't know if we know anything about the International Space Station, whether it might reach the storm, but we always like to look at that if it's happening.
I'm gonna try to pull up that information.
I imagine it will be quite a bit later on anyway.
Hmm.
Alright, so here is an image on visible of the storm right now. See if we can do a bit of enhancing. There we go. And at first glance, that certainly does not look like a Category 3. And some people might suggest it doesn't even look like a typhoon. But there it is. That's as of just 25 minutes ago. That was on the hour.
Mm-hmm.
Always great imagery. So the threats to land are still quite severe, however. This storm will be packing an enormous storm surge. Rip currents and high waves are a big danger right now. There's warnings out across the southern Ryukyu Islands for that. Gale advisories in effect for most of the southern Ryukyu Islands, still out for the Daito Islands as well, believe it or not. And there's strong wind warnings all across Taiwan, and there's even Signal 1 warnings for northern parts of the Philippines, mainly the Batanes Islands and some of the other islands further south. So of course its wind effects will be felt far and wide, and that's still only the beginning of the main warnings, really. Let's go back to Joey's webcam showing the relative calmness there at Ishigaki, which is on the dry side, the northern side of the storm. If you were in its equivalent spot opposite the storm, you would be under overcast skies and probably terrible visibility and lots of rain, I would imagine. But on the north side it is pretty clear and looks breezy, but generally fairly calm.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can get some more comments just now. Questions about the JMA cone and how they want to have a look at that. So let's throw up the JMA's forecast, the Japan Meteorological Agency, and their cone for the storm. And to be honest with you, it's quite similar to the JTWC. Let me get this for you. Oh dear, I've still got the colour filter on. That might have played havoc a little bit there. So you can once again see the typhoon. They've initialized it now at the latest update. I assume this is up to date, yep. At 925 millibars, very strong, 130 miles per hour, and they're expecting it to just about to hold its intensity for probably another, I'm trying to figure this out, 24 hours. Weaken slightly as it reaches the Ishigaki and Miyakojima. Only a little, and then they expect actually re-strengthening again in the East China Sea, just like the JWC is saying, and then quite a lot of weakening by the time it gets to Korea. It looks like they're going for more weakening than the JTWC when it gets to Korea. So that is an interesting slight discrepancy there between the two. In the meantime, I'm going to see if I can show some of the, whilst I'm on the JMA, whether I can get up some of the radar returns as well that we can show on our screen here. I know you guys have your own sources as well. It's actually, is it out of range or very nearly out of range?
Its center is, well, obviously not really apparent, so kind of hard to tell. It's pretty much out of range, though.
I'm just trying to get this up and running.
Might be able to see some of the outer bands, though.
Yeah, that is true.
On windy, you can see, obviously, the eye wall itself on radar has completely degraded.
There you go. Wow, look at
To
that. From a fully fledged eye there, and it just completely
goes bye-bye.
ran itself into the ground.
Completely
Yeah.
collapsed.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a tropical storm on radar.
And that is a yikes right there. I mean, where do we go from here?
A yikes! It's on thin ice right now.
No doubt this kind of activity will make it harder to predict.
Yeah.
Certainly in intensity and maybe even in track as we... You know, it might behave more erratically with no eye.
Well,
And
right now it looks totally annihilated while it's absorbing 13W.
And there it is on your RGB imagery there as well, showing that it certainly looked to me there that it is almost exposed.
Almost.
I've got some imagery up here from the JMA source now. Let's have a look at this. So this is what's been happening to the storm in recent hours. Obviously you can see where the eye should be, and just
Very
those last
clearly not.
frames being a forecast there out to an hour. They do that on their radars, which I think is nice. And there it is again, that loop loading through. I think we're just getting used to that loop. There we go, it's loading properly now. Let's look further north, and you'll see across those islands which areas have been affected in the last 4 hours, which this goes to, or 3 hours. And you'll see that generally rain rates haven't been huge, bearing in mind that this is the dry north side, so you're only going to get these peripheral bands, although they could cause some significant squalls. And for Taiwanese interest, you can see over there as well, the radar stretches that far. You can see some of Taiwan being hit by a little bit of rain there at this point as well. Those mountains are going to get a lot of rain, probably 16 inches over the highest points. So that once again is 400 millimeters, and if it's a very high rain rate and it all runs down very quickly, you could have the potential for flash flooding and landslides. Let's see if we can look a little bit further north. Okinawa, still getting little bits and bobs from the storm's influence, and you can see how all of those little showers are rotating. So they're all, at the very least, being influenced by the storm, if not being part of it. So very interesting to watch that radar, although it would be nice if we have the southern side of this, but I doubt the Philippines radars have that part of the storm. I'm not sure. But I don't think, well, you had it on windy there, you didn't see much else, did you? So
Pull it up on windy.
yeah, we saw that earlier. Let's see if we have any other imagery of note at this time. I don't think anyone's showing anything interesting right now. So let's go back to David, who was showing us that radar there.
Oh my. Okay. I got rid of it and like.
Oh, I'm
I can just pull
sorry.
it back.
Don't worry, we didn't see you fumbling there.
Let's see. No. Radar. There we go.
So there's another perspective on that radar imagery.
Well, I gotta wait for the thing to load, but
And there you can see just how intense those bands are on the southern side. And they didn't magically disappear either. What happened there?
it
Yeah.
lost data on it.
So, to be honest with you right now, the highest rain rates are over the Philippines.
Yeah, I would say that as well.
We have quite a few questions, I think, that came in. So let's have a look. Everything says, where can I find the GFS models that we use on tropical weather bulletins? Well, on my graphics display, I use software with a special color table that I developed myself. So you won't get that, unfortunately. But there's plenty of places, if you search around, that show nice looking models. There's so many sources. I can't imagine how many requests the GFS servers get from all of these sites when the model runs come out. Amazing Motion Pictures says, how do you pronounce the storm's name? Over to our pronunciation expert, Joey.
Thank you very much. This is my area of expertise. The typhoon's name is pronounced Hinnamnor. That's your question answered.
Which I will never say correctly.
Thank you. Another comment from Zach. There looks like an area of interest behind Typhoon Hinnamnor right now. Not as far as I saw, but let's take a look at the wide shot and see what we can see.
You mean that little rotation thing that's right behind the storm? That's probably what he's talking about. I think that's just low.
I don't
Spinning.
see anything.
That thing, no, right directly behind it. Not the remnants of.
Oh,
I'll show you. Hold up. No screen share.
there's nothing there though.
Wait.
The one above,
Nathan?
like near Japan?
No, look
Oh
on my
my.
screen share. This thing they're probably talking about.
Okay. They better not do anything silly.
Better not pull the funny.
No, it shouldn't. More comments here and some serious, obviously. Can the cone for Typhoon Hinnamnor shift eastward or westward? Of course it can. It always will have that possibility. If I refer you back to the JTWC cone, and just a reminder that the tropical storm force winds could pass anywhere within that cone. So you could still theoretically see a very close past the Chinese coast, not far from Shanghai. Equally, you could see a Kyushu landfall. You could see the storm making landfall as far north as Seoul, or even further towards the east, towards Osaka. But it's most likely that it's going to pass near the middle, which really puts Busan in the firing line. And just to tell you about timings on that, that's showing that the landfall near Busan would be at about afternoon of the 6th, which is on Tuesday. So it's still a fair way off yet, and it's in a way a little bit odd that we have so much time to tell you about this before it happens. Sometimes there's much less warning.
I have the GFS ensemble run from 06Z.
Alright, that would be interesting to see as well. And there it is.
I can't fully fit it in, but it shows I've shown enough.
Our graphics gain and then well, it's gone. Well, that was showing a consensus sort of in a similar range. Could we get some other radar from other countries? Well, we're looking at a few more just then. And these are questions from a while ago, possibly. Is there a chance that it might strengthen back to Category 5 and hit the Japan mainland? One of those is possible. Some people, some aggressive forecasters might argue that both are possible. but neither of them would happen at the same time. That is one thing I think everyone would agree on. It is very unlikely to get back to Category 5 status, especially after when you look at it. But for it to hit the main Japanese islands, which I don't know if that's what you mean by mainland or if you just mean the island of Honshu, but a Kyushu landfall cannot be ruled out. Just another comment regarding no storms in August in the Atlantic, which is quite
accomplishment.
It is an accomplishment and quite a rare one as well for the Atlantic Basin. But we got one in September.
The first day.
Yep. Back to your imagery, Danielle, and you're looking at, what's that, a 24-hour period?
Yes. And you can tell that whatever that little storm be very far behind, that looks to be moving to the north. I wonder if they're all circulating around each other. Kind of what it's looking like. Because 13W, you can see the remnants that are not necessarily fully attached. Kind of just spinning around, doing its own thing.
It's a bit messy.
Yeah. Well,
Mesmerizing to watch that loop over and over again, though, and just how that...
I want to zoom in so you can
Yes, please.
see the I go goodbye mode.
Just such a demise. Eye shrivels up, smaller and smaller, and it's still pushing back there, and then it goes. And it's really only...
It's literally the eye
disappeared.
wall. The eye wall is the leftovers, I guess, or the only thing avoiding it from being low level center.
So the main question now is, it doesn't have an eye or an eye wall.
Also starting to
really.
move north now.
It is a little, yeah. It doesn't really have an eye or an eye wall anymore till it builds a new one. So how much strength do you think this storm is going to lose? We have it 115 right now, and
I honestly think. Oh, go ahead.
we step it down slowly because wind lag. You know, the winds don't die down immediately when a storm capitulates like this. So that's probably a massive question determining the future of this storm, is that how much strength will it lose that it's got to try and get back again?
I'm gonna say, by the time it starts trying to reform, I would say a higher end Cat 2.
Joey, any thoughts?
I think it could get a bit weaker than that, actually.
Thinking
possibly-
around 110 to 105.
I'm thinking
if
about
not low.
100 miles an hour would be my guess at this point.
We're nearly there already.
Yeah, it really has degraded over the last couple of hours. So
Low-end Cat 2, maybe.
Yeah.
low end that too.
You might want to turn your gain up a little bit there, Marlene. You're a bit quiet. The latest ADT is currently putting it at 110 miles per hour. If that means anything to anyone.
It's very interesting, actually.
I might just check one or two other sources if I have them.
That
I wouldn't be surprised if it gets down to a very high-end Cat 1.
I think that would be my guess looking at this right now.
Yeah, it has a lot to do.
But only time will tell.
But that will be a better thing for the islands in the path.
Absolutely. No getting away from that, and that's what we like to see. We don't want to be too encouraging at this point. It's still very early on in this storm's passage through these islands. Indeed, it's not really done it at all yet.
Also, does anybody know if it's done any upwelling?
No doubt it will be. We don't have
Because
numbers yet.
because that could be also what could contribute to some weakening. Bring up some cooler water, too. Since it's been kind of spinning around the same area very slowly. You see it in the 24-hour loop that I have up on my screen share, but that is 24 hours. So.
I have the GEPS runs, which I'm not sharing, but it shows generally the system trending closer to Japan, with a possible landfall on the really southern coast of the main island Honshu, around 975 millibars.
I'd like to point out that the 18Z GFS run is coming out as well, and it has the storm stalling here for another 24 hours before it starts moving.
That would definitely heavily impact the system even more than it has.
That would be absolutely critical for this storm. I can't see how a storm could... And GFS forecasts at least... Yep, slight intensification whilst it's stalling. I mean, if it's already done this to the storm, then I don't know about that.
What did it initialize at?
So it initializes at 9:44. And then it weakens a bit more to 9:49 overnight our time, and then it drops to 9:37 this time tomorrow before it moves again, and drops to 9:24 in the East China Sea, and by the time it reaches South Korea, 9:49. Very similar track to the JTWC and the JMA as well. Big question mark on that forecast run. I don't know if that pressure's going to stay that low if it's doing this, but we'll only find out with time.
Looking on Windy right now, just the satellite, and the thing is getting very, very extremely close to the center low level. Scarily for the storm. It's actually, I might be able to see the edge of the low level right now on Windy.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Hold up. Yeah. How long is shear gonna still impact it for?
Well, that's another good question. I don't much have the answer to that right now. Let me check the model diagnostic plot, which I'll be able to show here on the screen just to show everyone what I'm talking about. Sometimes I show these graphics from RAM, a little bit cut off, but I think you'll get the idea when I start explaining. So the top left panel there is the storm's intensity forecast. The red line is the GFS. You've got the pale blue line, which is the HWRF, and they're both having it at category 3 range, well, falling to category 2 first and then back to category 3 below the JTWC forecast, and then weakening again. The top right graphic is the wind shear in knots. Now usually when it's above about 20 knots is about the point where things start to turn bad for it. Right now the models are depicting that it's at a peak at 30 knots, and it will start to decrease, and will decrease to near zero by the time we get to Monday morning.
And then spike. And
then of course spike. Sea surface temperatures, no problem.
That spike is probably when it travels northward.
And relative humidity pretty good as well. So the main question is going to be shear. And if shear does relax like so, then it's up to the storm to see whether it will have the ability to reconcile its eye wall and structure, which it looks like it's going to start from scratch at this rate. And so and if it remains really large, I just can't imagine any rapid intensification going on there.
Now, like a secondary peak from this point on, I truly see it where we have it like right now at
Maybe.
max. Maybe a little more at complete max, but I don't see it getting to a Cat 4 anymore.
All speculation at the moment, of course. The danger is still very present for all of these locations involved, from the Ryukyu Islands to Taiwan to Kyushu to parts of eastern China near Ningbo and Shanghai, where they might get lots of rainfall, and up to South Korea.
You have to remember something. With even if it's a lower end hurricane, hurricanes and higher end tropical storms do and can cause a lot of damage anyway.
Absolutely.
I guess like one good example from the Atlantic Basin was Nate of what year was it?
In
27?
2017.
Yes. Oh man, you can tell it's been a while.
Well, that's the thing. We've had it culturally drilled in for many decades about the categories, and not enough messaging has really been done until more recent years about actually the category isn't the be-all and end-all of this. Given the storm's size increasing a lot and its potential for very heavy rainfall of over 15 inches, which is, I can't remember how much that is again, it's nearly 400 millimeters over some of these islands. That's a very high amount. This storm will
still be catastrophic in some places.
It'll still carry a lot of storm surge. For Okinawa, when it was passing near its peak, it was up to 4 meters. I think most of that will still be present.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these issues are still ever present in this storm. But we've got to commentate on what's in front of us, really, and our comments regarding the storm's appearance is that it is degrading at breakneck speed right now. When you look at this RAM infrared imagery, the one that I use a lot and most familiar with, those reds minus 70 degree cloud tops are fading. The eye was visible at one point and now it is not, and we saw on radar that it has completely collapsed. Really fascinating to see how this storm has behaved. And just, I guess the big question is going to be how it managed to weaken so quickly. How could wind shear manage to do this so quickly? Interesting question for the scientists out there. More comments. Zach says Hinnamnor looks like a Category 1 typhoon right now. Weathercat says, will it become a Category 4 again? That's the JTWC forecast. And apparently a Moment of Lovely on our team, our moderator in the chat, said that storm surge data was updated expecting 2 meters in Japan and 1.5 meters in South Korea. Still think it could be a bit higher than that. Another comment, what will the conditions be in Jeju Island? They saw 380 millimeters of rain forecast, and what to expect in the Western Pacific in the next few months. 380, was that our number? I can't remember whether that's on our numbers here or not, but they were expecting a lot of rain over that area. I think that is actually about right. That island obviously being much more exposed than the rest of the South Korean coast is always a top candidate for significant typhoon conditions, and this will be no different. Typhoon conditions very likely there. Category 3 winds if the storm gets close to landfall. I think it might miss by a little bit though. If you consult the JWC cone again, the typhoon wind field might just about stay offshore. It will be a close one, but there'll definitely be strong wind gusts for quite some time there for that island, and definitely a lot of rainfall. And another question, how big is Hinnamnor now? Any takers on that?
I could check really quickly.
It's rather large, I know that much.
Give me 1 second here, and I'll be able to
Much more than it
up.
was yesterday. Let's go back to the geocolor imagery, and you'll see once again visible imagery of the storm now available, of course, as we're in daylight. Still trying when you look at this imagery, but you can just see wrapping around it is an increasingly hostile environment at the moment.
So the largest wind field in the system right now is in the, I believe, the southwestern quadrant. It's expanding out to 280 nautical miles.
Wow, that's impressive. That's more than what it should be.
The general size of the storm is impressive enough. Up and down from the center towards the Philippines, about 1,000 miles.
There's a wide shot again showing you the storm in the full view. Philippines down below it, getting a lot of that cloud coverage.
If you wanted to know side to side, roughly about 1,750,000. That's saying if...
Sorry, what? 750,000 what?
Miles. Side to side. That's a rough call. That's including it kind of merging with 13W.
750 miles from what?
That's side to side.
Right. Okay, yeah. You said 750,000 at first. We gotta go to a break on that note. We'll be back in a few minutes with more on this storm and more discussion from our team. Hinnamnor remains extremely powerful, even though its looks don't give it much to aspire for. We'll be back with more in just a few minutes. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Our second hour of coverage tonight / this morning on Typhoon Hinnamnor, which remains a powerful Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale with winds of around 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 946 millibars according to our team's estimates. Gale advisories for Yayama and Miyakojima Islands, and still for the Daito Islands as well. There are wind advisories or strong wind warnings for the entirety of Taiwan, and there are Signal 1 warnings for the northern extremities of the Philippines, which ironically is getting the strongest bands of the storm right now and the worst weather out of any land area at this moment in time. Considering that the storm was never supposed to go that way. Quite ironic, but pretty soon the storm's attention will shift back northwards again, what's left of it, because its weakening phase at the moment has been pretty severe, more so than we were expecting. Of course, that is absolutely good news, although we still got to be on our guard, as the storm is likely to strengthen some more when it emerges out of this stalling motion and heads back towards the north. But from what we saw in the latest GFS, they think that the storm will still remain in the same place for another 24 hours before starting to move. GFS somehow reckons it will manage to strengthen a little bit in that time. I'm not so sure. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, once again discussing this storm live with my team. We have Joey, David, this time it's David Tones, Gizmo, Jose and Marlene. Hello to all of you right now, and it's nice to be with you for another hour of coverage. Let's first go to Joey, who is showing us a live view. Where's this?
In
Taipei.
Taiwan, which is, as you mentioned, expected or is currently under strong wind warnings due to Typhoon Hinnamnor, and it's obviously raining here, and that is one of the biggest concerns that we had for Taiwan mainly, is that there could be quite some rainfall amounts in the area, but that is what we're seeing here, and the whole reason as to why I chose this webcam is because you can move it around. It's a sort of 360 or 720, I don't know what that means, but 720 view of, I believe this is a high street in
Man, how amazing is
Taiwan.
that?
You can even look in the window and look at the people working in that building, but we won't do that.
That's incredible. We need one of those here.
But yeah, that is the current view in Taipei.
So a very wet picture there, although it looks pretty still when you look at the foliage over there. It doesn't look like the rain rate's particularly heavy either. So just and we know that Taiwan experiences all kinds of storms. I'm sure this is nothing much to them right now, although certainly concerns for the mountain areas. About 11 or 12 inches of rainfall, 300 millimeters. It all depends on the speed of which that rain falls as well. If it's very quick, then obviously we've got big problems with flash flooding. And even if it's slower, we could be looking at, I don't know what their situation is, whether they're at flood risk right now, whether in a drought stage, but I would imagine it would be on the drought side, because I know China's been pretty bad recently, hasn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we snoop around Taipei during this typhoon, please send us a message. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we'll be able to continue the conversation. People liking the updates, that's nice to see. We do our best. If anyone has any suggestions for improvements, why don't you drop us an email, contact@force13.com, or you could post, where is the best place to post? I suppose you could join our Discord server and post in suggestions if you want to get your views heard. I'm just conscious that if you post things in chat, we'll just forget about it straight away, and people have a lot of valid suggestions on how to improve our coverage. Anyway, Weathercat says, is the storm being fed dry air?
It doesn't look
Yes.
like that on imagery.
Vertical
at the
wind
moment.
shear.
Wind shear,
Yes,
yeah, but dry air, no?
Dry air, no, not really. There is some dry air to the north, but it's going to be very, very hard for it to get in at this moment in time, unless its structure continues to degrade at the rate that it is. Then possibly we could see some dry air intrusions into the typhoon.
And a comment here, when will the next update on the strength of the storm happen? I don't know where our team are up to. I imagine they'll be having an update at the end of the hour.
Yep, that'd be the 0Z update.
And at that point we'll have our tropical weather bulletin, which the graphics again will be compiled by Ethan. Hopefully he's got the intro ready by the time we get there, because at the moment no, but we got to get the, I mean, it's quite a high pressure thing getting all those graphics ready, because you got to do it in a short time window, otherwise it'll be no good, it won't be up to date. Some more comments here. Would the automated stream end after Hinnamnor moves north? No, we're going to keep our automated stream going throughout its life, I think, at this point. I mean, if those of you who don't know, we've been running our automated stream for the whole time during this storm's intensification phase on our channel, and that's where you'll be redirected to when this stream ends. And that's on 24/7, showing you satellite imagery views of the storm. More comments. What to expect in the Western Pacific in the next few months? Oh yes, I forgot about that question earlier about the rest of the year. Indications are still showing strong signals of a backloaded end of season. In other words, very active late season in the Western Pacific. So I would watch very, very closely. Just as I thought we should have watched this area very closely where Hinnamnor is now, because sea surface temperatures have been through the roof and activity has been extremely low. And would you believe it? We get a category 5. I didn't think it would take on a weird track like this, but there it is nonetheless.
I do have the European models precipitation forecast up for Hinnamnor.
He was going quite fast. Yep, let's have a look.
Yeah, he was.
So, model run here from the ECMWF from 12Z. I assume that's still the latest run on that, and showing quite high precipitation amounts for the whole northern part of Taiwan, as well as the southern Ryukyu Islands. Usually we'd go to hour 168 to take a look at the whole thing, if you could stop it there or whenever your end of the frame is. And we can examine just who gets most of that rain, but you can already see there for... Yeah, you can stop it now if you want. Oh, well, there's 192, that's 8 days. So you can see there, expected rainfall. Once again, the southern Ryukyu Islands, huge. You can quite clearly see the track of the storm as well on what the ECMWF expects, and to be honest with you, that takes it pretty close to the coast of China. Some of the eastern shores there would be getting up to around 10 inches, 250 millimeters. Also, an interesting swathe there in the northern part of South Korea over significant population centers, including the capital, of very high rain amounts of over 300 millimeters on that screen there. and pretty much the whole peninsula, or the whole of South Korea, getting substantial amounts of rain.
But also, let's say Taipei also
Yep.
receiving over 300 millimeters.
ECMWF quite far west compared to the GFS and the JTWC. So it would suggest to me here that a landfall in South Korea is looking pretty likely. And like I said in the last hour, if it's a Category 3 landfall, which is what the JTWC are currently predicting, then that would be the only other Category 3 landfall in Korea on record, the other one being Typhoon Sarah in 1959, which first started by pummeling Miyakojima as a Category 5 landfall and then straight through up to South Korea. Certainly not a track like this storm, though, and perhaps Hinnamnor is showing us why it might not be able to achieve those same feats with this weakening trend right now. Let's take a look back at this satellite imagery. Well, there's a wide shot first. Let's try and get that close shot again. Well, here is the geocolor. It still looks quite decent on the visible imagery, but when you take a look at the infrared and radar, it's pretty poor, and it is still degrading into this hour as well. We'll have more questions in a moment. Back to Joey with the latest view. Quite a decent view from Ishigaki right now.
Yeah, I haven't looked at this camera in quite some time, but it does look like since the last time we looked at it, it has gotten a bit breezier on the island, but the rain seems to have stopped for some time. The skies are quite clear, so not too bad right now on Ishigaki, but don't get a false sense of hope because the system is beginning to turn back towards the north on recent frames of satellite imagery. So conditions could be worsening quite soon.
Certainly a concern. I'm just trying to get some other imagery that we could run to. I didn't actually plan to do this, so it's a bit of a mess. But there's been one or two questions about the Atlantic and about Tropical Storm Danielle and its intensification. We'll chat about that just a little bit and show you some imagery. We'll talk about it a lot more in the next hour when we do our tropical weather bulletin. But let's show you some imagery. Just got to try and get this up. Bear with me here. Going as quick as I can. Hopefully this will work. So there is Danielle right now in the Atlantic Ocean, and it is looking decent. I don't think it's rapid intensification, but I think it is decent intensification and a pretty damn good structure. People wondering whether it's an eye or not earlier today. I'm pretty sure that is an eye developing there already, and Danielle approaching hurricane status and could become, looks like it will become, our first hurricane of this Atlantic hurricane season, which has been on a bit of a slow start, let's say. Compared to average, the Atlantic at the moment is about 11% of its usual activity in terms of actual energy. And in the Western Pacific, it's way behind schedule here as well, where Hinnamnor is. Even despite Hinnamnor, we are still about 35 or 40% of what we usually see by this point in the year. So a lot of catching up to do in the Western Pacific, which lends credence even more to suggestions that it will be a very backloaded season in activity. Interesting times ahead. David, you joined us this hour. What do you think of the storm at this juncture? And I don't suppose you've got any news on ISS passages tonight.
International Space Station had that should be coming up. Not sure of the location, but I've been reading the information from the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, and the reason why we're seeing, and I pick up on your point about a further 24 hours, as we know, a stationary or near stationary system it can deteriorate considerably because of the upwelling and it's sucking up all of the moisture. But the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is saying that the typhoon is being squeezed or being blocked by three steering mechanisms. And until such time that one of them breaks down, loosens control on the system. But the satellite imagery, it's a mess. I'm looking at the flow. There's a bit of flaring to the southwest.
Yes, and like we've said, it's actually the Philippines right now that's getting the worst conditions from this storm.
Yes.
Which is, I think, is quite ironic. Quite displaced from the centre.
And when it starts moving, northwards? Is that the projected direction?
We can tell it's moving a little bit north at the moment, very slowly. It's only about 2 miles per hour right now.
But it's still, let's say it's a beast, a monster, whatever word you like to use. But and our viewers, quite a bit of commercial shipping is really staying clear. They're actually closer to, I think it's the China coastline.
Yep.
And wave height, I haven't checked the JTWC. They did have 50, but I think it's down around 47.
Just trying to find out more information about the space station and what it's up to. Actually, well,
And apologies for a barking dog in the background.
Oh, we can't hear one. It's
good.
going to pass southern Japan soon. We won't see the storm. And the following hour, I think it might actually miss as well. So I wouldn't put much faith on the ISS tonight.
No.
So we'll give that a miss. Let's see if we've got any more questions at this point, just right now. Well, there was another question, which I'll mention, but I don't think you'll get a great answer. How active do you think the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season will be? That's quite a way off just yet, and not something that we're really going to discuss during this storm. And that's about it right now. Let's go back to another webcam in Japan on Miyakojima, Joey.
Yeah, I've just switched to this one. So, there's a rainbow.
That's nice.
Just switched to this one, so it's going to take a bit of time loading. There we go. But yeah, Miyakojima, again, one of those places where the conditions aren't too bad currently, but also another one of those places where we are looking to see some quite impactful conditions shortly as the typhoon continues to move northwards. But again, let's hope that this area doesn't have a false sense of hope during this area of calm, because the typhoon is still very much there. Although it looks like it's weakening on satellite right now, it will still pack a punch when it hits these islands. So, albeit it may be a bit weaker than what we were previously thinking, but regardless, that storm surge is still going to be impactful. And it will be a very concerning picture probably in the next couple of hours on this webcam.
It's a rainbow.
Yep.
That bus
And a
doesn't
yellow
seem
bus.
deterred by it. I mean, the sea there looks maybe a little bit choppy, and it's difficult to obviously just from this shot to understand the geography of the area here, but just from what we can see, I imagine it's at least a little bit breezy there.
Yeah, and the clouds I've noticed have gotten quite a bit darker as well since I was last looking at
And
it.
the speed.
Yeah.
The trees are moving in the wind.
And that's Miyakojima. I'm just looking right now, depending on where on the island we are, that bridge must connect one island, I don't know which islands.
We could be on the very far northern side, possibly.
Oh,
Or
maybe.
or very far southern side.
Gosh, it's hard to tell, but there's a little band of rain moving through there right now, towards the western side.
I think this might be. Hold on.
You can probably tell
Yeah,
by
I
the way
see.
the clouds are moving, actually, because those clouds will be moving northwest with the rain, so that means the camera is looking southwest.
Southwest. Yeah, I see which island it's connecting.
So it must be from Miyakojima to the airport.
Yeah, probably because there's a small little island off the southwestern coast of the island, which this bridge is probably connecting to.
I
Interesting.
can have a look on Google.
But yeah, a little bit of rain moving through there shortly. It doesn't look particularly severe, though. And as a matter of fact, I'll show you, because I've still got the radar imagery up from the Japan Meteorological Agency of the area. The webcam is located here in Miyakojima. You can see that radar moving off. That was the future cast, so it's still loading in, actually. So we're just coming up to the present. I'll tell you which frame is the present time. It's that one, and then off it goes again. It does the future cast up to an hour, and you can see those bands moving on. So the other islands, Ishigaki, getting quite a bit of rain here and there as well. I'm surprised we didn't see more of that on the other webcam, actually.
There was some going on just a bit before we clicked to it, and it moved off.
The central core of the storm on those latest radar frames, there it is, right near the edge of the radar scope there. And certainly still struggling, and this is what they think on the future cast. Not sure. You can also see Taiwan from here, and quite a bit of rain coming in there as well. I think it slackened off a little bit in more recent hours. Of course, this is quite far in the radar range. I know Taiwan has radar as well, but just looking at this, yep, there's still quite a bit of rain coming in on the northeastern tip, so that gives you a general idea what's going on right now. And you may be wondering, well, there's not much of a typhoon there on radar. Well, this is the northern side, which is quite dry now. After the typhoon has been, punished by wind shear. I don't want to say destroyed or pulverized or anything, because it is still there, very much so. But it is looking a little bit sorry for itself. Here's some RAM imagery to show you once again that latest infrared, to show you just how this collapse of the eye wall happened and where we're up to now. Check those latest frames again. Wasn't looking probably the first time. Let's just have a little look there. And I'm just looking out for signs of fight back. It's still not really there yet. It's looking pretty poor. As long as this continues, this is good news, and this is signs of further weakening. We're currently putting it at 115 miles per hour. Our team, I assume, will be issuing new intensity data by the top of the hour, and we can find out what they're thinking by then. Avtro says that, is asks, is Hinnamnor a very strong typhoon? I assume by the JMA definition. The answer is yes, it is. And I know that our moderator, A Moment of Lovely, is talking about rainfall in Manila right now as well. So, a lot going on with this storm. If we cross back to that wide shot, you'll see its influence extending right over northern Luzon. Let's try and blow this image up a little bit more. It means I have to drag it around. It's quite a bit bigger now. So you can see just the extent of the typhoon once again there. And let's go back to Joey, who's showing us another diverse screen. I want a camera like that. And a place like that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, this is Ishigaki as well. Which, yeah, it looks like a very nice day, actually.
With scattered showers. Might be...
Yes.
Oh no, that's sky on the left, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another point of view. More comments here, whether we're going to do more updates after the stream. I don't know if anyone's going to be on for an update as soon as we come off the air. It would be nice if someone is there, I don't know. But rest assured, we'll have more live coverage every day that this storm is a major threat. It's code red on our TECO scale, which is all hands on deck, basically. It's a very severe situation. Even if it weakens, even if it goes down to category 1 status, I expect that we would still be easily in a code red situation for this storm, all the way up to the 48-hour mark at least. See if there's any more imagery we could look at. I don't have many other sources to show you at this moment in time, just the usual ones that I've been showing. Let's go back to the JTWC warning cone, just to remind those who haven't seen it so far what they're expecting. They're expecting the storm to weaken to a mid-range category 2, and as you can see, move well northwards, a little bit further west than what we were initially thinking, enough to give the east coast of China tropical storm force winds, and then shoot off towards the northeast. After its weakening, it re-intensifies into the East China Sea. They're expecting a second, well, it's going to be a third peak really, of 115 knots, which is category 4, and then a landfall near Busan in South Korea as a category 3. And like I said before, that would be only the second category 3 landfall in South Korean history. And another comment there, the chances that North Korea gets affected. The chances are definitely there, but I expect that it's not going to be a huge impact for North Korea. Rainfall totals might get quite high though, maybe towards 200 millimeters. Let's see what else we have right now. I would show you a screen, Marlene, but it's too small for us. We won't be able to see anything on that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Me and my phone.
This isn't a question.
Yes?
But what I'm going to phrase it as a question because someone said, so what are the chances that I will hit Shikoku?
Shikoku?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Chances are quite low, but the cone of uncertainty is there for a reason. Tropical storm force winds I would prepare for. I really don't think you'll get a typhoon, so that's some good news there. As for rainfall, I would say probably maximums of 4 inches, 100 millimeters, but I'd probably say it's going to be less than that. Once again, we're looking at the geocolor imagery of the storm spiraling. And earlier on, we were quite concerned that it was actually going to become exposed. Looks like it's still holding on. But it's in a bit of a tough patch at the moment, and has certainly weakened quite a lot from its former peak. If you just joined us right now, the storm is at 115 miles per hour, a pressure of 946 millibars, that's a category 3. It is moving northwest at 2 miles per hour. There are gale warnings and advisories for the southern Ryukyu Islands. They're still in effect for the Daito Islands and for the whole of Taiwan. Storm surge is expected to be significant, and rain totals are expected to be over 200 millimeters or 300 millimeters in many places. Northern Taiwan, the southern Ryukyu Islands, of course, and a lot of South Korea. Eastern China might still get around 4 to 6 inches, as well as Kyushu.
I am looking at the models. This is the 18-0 on the GFS. Has it heading north and intensifies just north of the I've got the island chain. The north of Taiwan and the Japanese islands, the ones near Taiwan, at 924 millibars.
Yeah, but that relies on the storm strengthening a little bit in the stalling that it's doing for the next 30 hours, which I don't see happening.
I mean, considering that so far its stalling's weakened it already to 115 miles per hour, and that its eye wall is nearly exposed and its eye is not really visible, you can I can't understand why the GFS is predicting it to be re-intensifying at this rate, considering that it's already stalled and it's already weakening, which is proving that it probably won't intensify while it's stalling.
Let's show you a visual depiction of that 18Z GFS model, which we now have graphics for. Here it is, and the model initializes the storm right now at, I don't know why it's flashing on and off. I'm trying to get a read. Somewhere near its current, about 121 I just saw there, 122. So a little bit stronger than it is. And then what happens? It's still not loaded properly yet, I don't think. We'll just wait for that to happen a little bit. But interesting to see that the western band there apparently delivering tropical storm force winds to quite a large chunk of western Taiwan. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe some of you could inform us on that if you're watching from over there. And you can see that southerly band near the Philippines in terms of wind.
I've also linked to note on that GFS model of the winds that if you do look at Taiwan, you can see that it's pretty much surrounded by tropical force winds, but also that on its western side, where there are most of Taiwan's population is sitting, not the capital, even though the capital will experience strong winds, but areas such as Tiancheng City, Hitshu City, Hayatai City, Tiananmen City, all these cities which combined would have a population of 10, probably even 20 million, all in that tropical storm wind of Taiwan. So even though the system is quite far away from Taiwan, looking at its wind field, it is still going to cause tropical storm force conditions on what normally would be a protected part of Taiwan due to its mountains.
Interesting for sure. Let's watch the storm now. Hopefully it's working. So there it is, stalling for 24 to 30 hours. In winds it doesn't actually strengthen that much, but in pressure it is. And then it gets going, passing very close to Miyakojima. In fact, that looks like a landfall. Let me just mark out Miyakojima with this little dot here. Is that a landfall? Pretty much. And through it goes, back to Category 4 status, into the East China Sea, and look how much it's growing. And there it is on another look here. How strong is that? 130, around up to 140 miles per hour, that. And then it continues, really growing, enormous. When you look at that, just how huge that is. I mean, the typhoon force wind field is twice as big as Taiwan when it's on its approach to South Korea.
Would not, I'd like to note on that one as well, the city of Shanghai is in that tropical storm wind field.
Just about.
And also, most of Kyushu in that tropical storm up to typhoon force wind field, so Nagasaki, Fukuoka, Kumatayo, Hiroshima, all of those cities, even extending up to Kyushu, all of those cities in that typhoon force wind field, which is quite a high, quite dangerous situation. And obviously extending into Korea, you have Jeju, Busan, Daegu, Gangwon, Busan, pretty much all of the Busan's metropolitan area, which 15 million people living there, all in that tropical storm, easily could be up to a typhoon force wind field as it enters the Sea of Japan. So there will be a lot of people who are affected with tropical storm and even typhoon force winds, mainly in South Korea and Japan.
Could still be a Category 3 by the time it reaches South Korea on this forecast from the GFS, and then it does disintegrate. Post-tropical cyclone, off it goes. A question there about how does the storm compare to Tip in size? On the forecast you can see it does get quite large. There it is. I'll do a little rough depiction. So the wind field there, that is quite large. Typhoon Tip's wind field was something like this. Quite a bit larger, if not bigger than that. So it's not a tip, but it is a large storm. Maybe in the top 10%, maybe higher, 5%. But not a tip. Very powerful though. Let's check those rainfall totals as well. Obviously, something we've been harping on about a lot. New forecast. New data here from the 18Z GFS. What are we looking at? Over parts of Taiwan again, around 11 inches, which is nearly 300 millimeters. Taipei itself, about 7 inches, which is also quite a lot, just short of 100 millimeters. Onto the islands, Yonaguni is there, 6 inches, and I'm trying to find the other islands. I can't even see it's covered in all of that colour. Let me just go back. So let me mark these islands. Ishigaki, Miyakojima, Kumijima, Okinawa. How does that compare when we look at all of that rain? Oops. Oh man, there we go. The precipitation, so look at that, very high amounts for these areas. Potentially 17, 18 inches for Ishigaki. And now look at what it's putting Miyakojima into, particularly 24 inches there now, it says. With that latest forecast, it's trending up for that island in particular. 24 inches, that is 600 millimeters. Yep. Kumijima is also up at 13 inches. Okinawa around 12 inches, 300 millimeters. So, oops, very high totals, and those numbers are trending up. And look up here as well, there's 3 different tracks of high rain rate now. And that, I'm trying to figure out exactly how that does come about. But I imagine that, of course, the storm's track is going to be something like that. So I think it's just for its huge size, it's going to start delivering really high amounts of rain, or maybe it gets tangled with the front and it combines to make very high amounts of rain over Korea. The northern part of South Korea in the latest forecast is a concern. You're looking towards the capital, Seoul, around 16 inches possibly in that area, which of course is 400 millimeters. To its northeast, all along there, getting up towards similar values. Very wet if that's to occur. The latest run is giving the southern part of South Korea a bit more of a pass, but still to around 7 inches at maximum. And parts of southwestern Japan not looking at a huge amount at the minute. It's just the extreme offshore islands that are getting those huge amounts of rain. And just one more thing, near the area where it's stalling, it's still forecasting 46 inches of rain, but that is at sea, so I wouldn't worry about that one.
Just to say, like, that amount of rainfall over Seoul, the Seoul metro area, which is a large metro area, but it has 25 million people living in it alone. Not to mention that track over, which I believe is North Korea's capital, Pyongyang, which has a population of 3 million. And obviously, even though the south part of Busan is missed, just that alone, that is close to 30 million people just in the Korean Peninsula that could be affected by this extreme rainfall.
Yeah, could be a big issue for that whole area.
Just remember something, and along with that, Seoul is already has faced severe life-threatening flooding, not even from a tropical system. So it's not like it's like systems and people and flood defences. It's not like they're prepared at their fullest to prevent this, because they've already been used. There's already been millions spent to stop flooding already happening, and then just to have this typhoon come in and dump huge amounts of rainfall over an already saturated and flooded ground would mean that it would just make the flooding even worse, because the ground won't be able to absorb any more water. So flooding in the Seoul region, if that does come to reality, would be even worse than what was seen in August.
Crikey. Well, we're not far from our tropical weather bulletin hour. We'll be talking not just about Hinnamnor, but about all of the other action around the tropics right now, which is starting to get a little bit more crowded, with Danielle intensifying quickly and Tropical Depression 11E in the Eastern Pacific. We'll be talking about all of that next hour. Hinnamnor is still a powerful Category 3 storm with winds of 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 946 millibars, but is looking a little bit worse for wear, particularly on the infrared satellite imagery. Joey, any further comments you'd like to make regarding the storm and maybe how it's progressed this hour? Anything you're noticing?
I'm not sure whether the cyclone analyst team data has been mentioned yet.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Their fix has been released, and our cyclone analyst team have downgraded it to a 90 knot Category 2. with a central pressure of 952 millibars.
That means we got to update all our bars.
Yay!
Well, that's an interesting turn of events. So the weakening continuing, and honestly, really not much of a surprise there. So you heard that from our team. They're going to be downgrading it again to a category 2, but still remains the enormous rain threat. 105, did you say?
Yes, 105 miles an hour.
So we gotta update all our stuff here as well. If you've got any comments or questions for us right now, please send in your messages. That's what we're here for. This is Force 13 live, covering the very latest on Typhoon Hinnamnor.
I didn't have Force at Force 13, but it was a question. Is this going close to Japan? Which, I mean, some models do take it close to Japan. There are some models that even have it landfall in Japan, but there are some models which have it going towards Korea, and some models that have it going over Korea, such as what we were mentioning earlier, going over Seoul. So at this stage, we can't really say for certain where it will go or how far it will be to the Japanese islands. Well, the main Japanese islands, but it is not out of the picture that this system will track over Japanese islands such as Kyushu, such as the southern part of Honshu.
We keep looking at this infrared satellite imagery once again, and it is still withering away.
You can really see its eye weaken and then almost get exposed in the later frames.
What I'm looking out for every frame here is a sign of fight back. So far, none to be seen. Let's see if we can take a look at some other imagery. Here is the close-up water vapor, which can sometimes give you a better indication of structure than some of the other infrared channels. And there you can see a little bit of circulation going on there. That's possibly to do with what's left of the eye. It's just a real odd thing to be looking at right now. I don't think I've ever seen such a capitulation of an eye and eye wall without anything to replace it. That's what's really getting me at the moment.
Joey has the webcam.
Because usually when you see these things happen, when storms weaken, it's usually an eye wall replacement cycle, or they get sheared to bits and they turn post-tropical, and you can tell when those effects are happening. This one is just completely vanishing off the face of the earth.
It's an eye wall replacement because it's replacing its eye with nothing.
At the minute, beautiful view at Miyakojima with some towering clouds, Joey.
Yeah, those clouds have moved off to the sides now, leaving very clear skies at Miyakojima right now. Same thing can be said for the Ishigaki Island, which shows very clear skies as well. The sun peeking through, so possibly a bit of a break for the people on these islands from the constant rainfall that was falling yesterday and just a couple of hours ago here. So a sight to behold, it looks like.
And once again, this is on the dry-ish northern side of the storm. The northern Philippines right now getting pretty raw deal with lots of rainfall from what we're hearing over a large part of northern Luzon.
I was trying to look for a few webcams in that area, but haven't had any luck. So if you're wondering why there's no imagery there. It's because we can't find any live webcams for you.
There is another question. How big a category is it currently?
Well, it's about to be down to a category 2 on our graphics. Joey, do you have type A?
Oh, yeah, let me pull that up really quickly.
The one where we can start people working?
Yeah, but I just
Gonna
want to
take a
see
bit of
how
time to
The people handling it.
if the weather's turned any worse there at all. Joey's just working on getting that loaded.
You better internet.
Yeah.
Looks like it's raining more.
Possibly, and it looks maybe a bit windier.
Okay.
I can see the trees moving. And I couldn't see them moving before. Do you know where in Taipei this is?
No.
No idea.
No idea. It could. I think it probably is about central Taipei. It looks like it could be because there's loads of skyscrapers around.
I still
so I'm
find this
guessing it's
camera
probably-
quite crazy that you can interact with it like this in real time. I mean, it is a 360 camera, isn't it? So it's just
It's
providing
a
all those
720.
feeds, and you can just
720 because you can look up and down as well. Which is
How does that
fascinating.
equal 7? I'm confused.
Yeah, same. To be honest. Don't even ask me, and I'm quite good at maths.
Yeah, definitely raining there in Taipei right now. Traffic's still going on as normal. Yes.
Just talking about the camera, there's a live website down in New Zealand that has the viewer interaction too.
There was one I was that I saw yesterday. I think it was on trying to remember what island it was. Maybe it was either Ishigaki or Yonaguni, I think that's the pronunciation. Yonaguni, which is farther south, I believe, closer to Taiwan. And it had controls like this, but it would actually move the camera itself from the website. And you'd have like a 5-minute slot of control of the camera, and because it wasn't a very popular camera, there weren't many people viewing it. You could just keep on controlling it for as long as you wanted, really. So I thought that was really cool. I'll try and find it.
Certainly raining there right now, and we'll just have to see how much rain actually occurs over the course of the next few hours. Taipei expecting up to 8 inches, and that would be 200 millimeters of rain. On the mountains it could be much more than that, around about 12 inches or 300 millimeters. The storm undoubtedly is still weakening, and we're expecting to lower it to a category 2 when we begin the tropical weather bulletin in a few minutes. But the storm is still very strong right now in terms of its size and in terms of its potential impact. Rainfall and so much more. Surge, rip currents. Let's throw it back to our satellite imagery now. Oh, we don't have anything loaded. Oh, there's some imagery. And let's go back to the geocolor. Once again, you can still see it rotating quite nicely. Still got some powerful winds in there, not a doubt about it. We're going to take a break here. We'll be back in a few minutes to show you the Tropical Weather Bulletin live, and that will feature all of the storms out there in the tropics. There's 3 of them now, 3 cyclones at least, if not 4. We'll check up on all the latest information in just a few moments. Stay tuned. Our live coverage will continue in a moment. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Tonight, Hinnamnor stalling and weakening. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Live tropical weather bulletin for September 2nd. Right now we have 3 tropical storm or stronger active and another tropical depression. Hinnamnor now a category 2 storm and weakening still. Danielle a strengthening tropical storm in the Atlantic. 11E a depression in the Eastern Pacific and an unnamed tropical storm in the Southwest Indian Ocean. Day 94 of Atlantic hurricane season. Danielle is there out over the North Atlantic Ocean, far away from anything right now, but maybe a long-range threat to the Azores. 70% chance for an area of interest to the south and a 20% chance near Cape Verde. Day 111 in the Eastern Pacific, a 70% chance of development near Mexico, and 11E, which has formed and will probably become a short-lived tropical storm, and claim the next name. Typhoon Hinnamnor is what we've been covering on our live stream today, and is struggling right now in the face of high wind shear and has completely lost its core. Still a major threat though, and in the southern Indian Ocean we still have that shocker of a surprise tropical storm that still no one else really cares about. Only we have designated it. None of the agencies have designated it or named it yet, so we're out on our own there on a limb. Anyway, that was all of the main stuff right now. Sorry for the black screen, I'm trying to get something loaded. Well, there is some imagery of the Atlantic Ocean, but it's the wave near Cape Verde, and that's really not looking very pretty. So let's throw it back to me and the team right now with Hinnamnor, the main feature where we're standing. My name is Nathan Foy here in the studio. I'm still here. I don't think the stream software like that, but here I am. And this hour for our live tropical weather bulletin, I'm joined by David Tones, Christian, Joey, Gizmo, Jose, and Marlene. Hello everyone, and welcome back. This is our live tropical weather bulletin.
Good day.
Good evening.
Bonjour.
We're working to update all of our bars still right now to reflect that Hinnamnor is now down to a category 2. Christian, you've just joined us, so I'm going to ask you first about what you think about this storm. Last time you were talking about it on the air, it was probably still a high-end category 4.
I think last time I was talking about it on the air, it was actually category 5, but now to hear that it's gone down to a category 2, yeah, what the hell happened to this thing?
It died.
Wind shear. Wind shear was the main factor. I think it's in about 30 to 35 knots of wind shear right now.
Yikes.
But at this moment in time, it should be going down. I think it's just peaked.
Its eye wall is about to collapse, I believe.
You interrupted at a very good time there, nearly choked. But
Good job.
yeah, it's been degrading over the past couple of hours while we've been watching it, and before that as well. As Gizmo said, eye wall is sort of collapsing on itself as well, and it does look like it's continuing to degrade. So that's your sit rep there, Christian.
Fair enough. Well, I say good riddance.
Yikes.
I can't
confirm
this. Maybe someone else can confirm this. But in the comments, apparently the Mauritius Meteorological Services did show a tropical disturbance where the tropical storm is marked.
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a disturbance, not a full-fledged storm.
Yeah, well, it's still something.
Well, those of you who are wondering about Danielle, well, let's take a look at it right now. Here's some imagery.
well.
It's the only imagery I currently have of the storm, so our team might have to help me a little bit with getting some imagery of it.
Yeah.
But it's looking good on the geocolor imagery here, the floater, and you can see
like
how it certainly looks like a bona fide eye that's probably developing in this strengthening storm. What have our team gone for its intensity right now?
So
Personally,
I haven't actually gone through and sort of given it a good look.
I don't know.
They've kept it at 60 miles per hour.
from what I've seen,
Yeah, we've kept it. We've kept it at 50 knots, 1003, as far as I'm seeing. If that's correct. Yeah.
So in this hour, we've got a lot more scope to talk about the Atlantic systems and, of course, the Eastern Pacific threats as well. There are tropical threats all around the world right now, not just Typhoon Hinnamnor, but we are obviously led quite a lot by what our viewers want to see. So
have a
please
question.
send us your messages and we'll answer as best we can.
This is from Tropical Storm Alton. AOI that has a 70 chance of formation, would that be a possible tropical storm or hurricane, and where it go?
That particular system right now is 91L, right?
Yep.
What do we know about 91L?
It's at a 50-70% chance.
It's not been looking too great recently, from what I know. Let me take a quick look at it.
There it
Models
is.
models seem to be showing it do a kind of a U-turn and head towards Bermuda.
Oh. Well, yes, quite a sharp turn. Not quite a U-turn, because I was thinking it was going to go back to Africa then, but no. A sharp turn quite a bit before Bermuda is what I was seeing from models recently.
Maybe I'm outdated then.
Maybe it's still a possibility, I'm not sure, but as for the time being, it still has yet to form, and it feels like it's been in sort of the same area, and we've just been watching it forever now.
Yeah.
Joey's got some imagery to show us. Let's see what we've got.
Oh, wow.
So an infrared look at Danielle, looking good.
Definitely trying to form an eye.
Yeah.
That I'm not sure what's happening, but it keeps flashing, presuming that there's a missing frame somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but that's nothing that we can do. But yeah, Danielle, since it formed earlier today, it's been continuing to improve. It's quite looking quite good for the intensity that the National Hurricane Center and ourselves have put it at. Currently 60 miles per hour, tropical storm, and
How far north is this thing?
Same latitude as, I think, about New Jersey right now.
Lucas Chan asked if it's abnormally far north for the Atlantic. No, not really.
No, I mean, Joe, if you could translate that latitude in terms of Europe, that would be helpful. I have no idea how far north New Jersey is.
It's south of Europe.
Yeah. It's probably sort of on the same latitude as the Azores right now.
I think Spain only starts at about 40 degrees, doesn't it?
Well, like, where's Gibraltar?
I don't know, about 40 degrees, I think.
Oh, if it's a bit north than the Azores, so it's around the same latitude as Lisbon, I believe.
Oh. There's your answer, Christian.
Yep.
It is quite far north, yeah.
What do we know?
Yeah, around the Lisbon, Faro, that sort of area.
So this is one of a few systems that we are actively tracking right now. Let's take a look at the Eastern Pacific view as well. Now you can see Tropical Depression 11E, a very broad system as a matter of fact, just south of La Baja California Peninsula. Any rumblings yet that this could be a tropical storm?
It's close, I'd say.
Okay, and the other area of interest, quite clear to see as well, and some good rotation in there today already. So it certainly looks like these two systems are all set to go.
Oh, we do have a question that we seemingly missed, which has been reposed by moderator. When will Mufa form?
Moifa?
Yeah. Sorry.
We'll find out in the models section later on when that might happen, but there's no clear signs of it yet.
Not to mention we did have 13W, which is now pretty much gone.
That had a small chance.
Which had a yeah, apparently I heard JMA was going to name it, but they never ended up doing so in the end.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
They were expecting to upgrade it to Tropical Storm, but then as they were going to, it started getting picked up by Hinnamnor, and they don't believe that it reached Tropical Storm intensity before Hinnamnor picked it up, I'm guessing.
Go back to some of the other views you were showing us, Joey, a moment ago.
Yeah, this is the Eastern Pacific. You can see 11W, just 11W, 11E, just there. Believe that's heading north towards the northwest. At this moment.
We're talking about Marn now, are we? No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, that's heading towards the northwest. You can see there. But yeah, that's the Eastern Pacific, and then we also have our other 70% chance AOI down here. I'm not sure if you can see, that's just been covered by the. It's just been, what's the word? Covered over by the night light.
Yep.
And the National Hurricane Center going with 70% on that AOI, which we'll get more into on the model section.
And we'll be looking at all of that at about 22. In the meantime, we're telling you about everything that's going on across the tropics. I think we can't really avoid much longer going full on back into Typhoon Hinnamnor. So let's take another look at this geocolor imagery. Let's throw it back to the RAM infrared imagery to see. Once again, we're looking for any signs of a fight back from this storm, which has been being rattled and taking a lot of punishment there. But no, it's looking even worse in those latest frames. It's looking almost like it's about to become exposed now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which I just think is quite astonishing to see the downfall of this storm so far. We were not expecting this amount of weakening at all.
It rapidly intensified, then rapidly weakened.
It is still a Category 2, however, and as bad as it looks right now, it's still got quite a bit of time to fight back, and the chances are it will get better later on, and there's still plenty of sea in the East China Sea for it to strengthen some more, aided by sea surface temperatures that are above average at the moment, so it is not over by a long shot.
With nothing to do with Hinnamnor, back to the Atlantic. That Cincinnati Azores, obviously, as saw at the start, looks quite bad. National Hurricane Center now going with a 10% chance of formation, so it clearly doesn't seem that it will form. That's down from its peak of, I believe, 50-60% chance
the
a
one
few
at
days
Cape
ago.
Verde?
Yeah, the one near Cape Verde. And according to the National Hurricane Center, they're not expecting significant development of the system, and I can definitely see them marking it as 0-0 by the 3rd or 4th of September.
I think so. And there it is on our screen right now. Very little to see regarding that area of interest. off the west coast of Africa.
Looks very dead.
It does. The more time that's going on that I'm looking at the JMA radar returns from the typhoon as well. Let's go back to this, showing really less signs of life. What's going on there? Oh, that was the wrong, pressed the wrong button. This one. You can see the storm progressing up to the real time, which is there. That's the real time, and this is the forecast over the next hour. They do nowcasting, and a forecast up to 1 hour out on the radar, and it just shows nothing very much at all on that forecast. Watch back. That's the final part of the eye wall decaying there in those last few hours. And then there it is. It's going quicker now that we've got it working. It's gone through all the images. A real struggle that this storm has had. I'm not sure why the radar range changed on those latest. Oh, just because that's the forecast, I think. But it's a big struggle for this typhoon right now. Look further north along the islands to see what actually is going on. You've got a lot of hit and miss rain showers that are affecting Miyakojima and the Yayama Islands, as you can see there. They're small, sharp showers. It may get a little bit squally at times, but in general, there's not too much going on. You've got more persistent rain over Taiwan, which is also visible from the Japanese radars, affecting the northeastern area. We had some webcams showing Taipei earlier. I'm sure we'll take a look at that again later. Up to Okinawa, you can see that the rainfall in that area is a little bit more sparse and lighter still. Just a bit of drizzle by the looks of things there for various parts of the island. Little showers coming in and out. The storm is much further away, of course, than it was yesterday, but it's coming back. And Okinawa will probably get tropical storm force winds again in about 2 or 3 days. And if it sounds like a long time, 2 or 3 days, that's because the storm is expected to stall for another 24 hours, possibly 30 hours, before it actually gets moving towards the north. And if this is what stalling has done to the storm so far, weakening it so much and putting it on the ropes, then who knows what might happen in another 24 hours. It's about to completely lose it. Let's see if we have any more questions at this point. I don't think there's too much going on. Just one comment suggesting that the microwave imagery shows it quite well as well, how the storm has been deteriorating. Joey is back in Taipei with that latest imagery. What's going on there?
Same sort of picture. Traffic has gotten a bit heavier. Is what I can see. I did a bit of research, and this is on the northern edge of the city. The far northern edge of Taipei, and rain continuing on in this part of the city at the moment. Don't know whether it's gotten heavier or lighter at all, but it is still raining, and you can tell because someone's got their umbrella up. Clearly don't want to get wet.
Good observation there, Joey.
Yep, thank you.
There was another comment there. Is Okinawa really safe if it hits? Right now we're looking at quite a high amount of rain still for you. Probably about 4 or 5 inches, which is just over 100 millimeters. As for winds, I think you're about 50-50 for tropical storm force winds. I would imagine that you will get some, at least for a brief period of time when the storm passes. So storm force gusts, I don't think the winds are going to be too mad in Okinawa. But rain could cause some issues potentially. Depends on how the rain rate is for flash flooding, of course. but rain totals appearing to be somewhere around 150 millimeters at max. Tonight we're also joined by David. Are you there right now? Just wanted to see if he had any other comments on either Hinnamnor or any of the... Yes, he's here. On Hinnamnor or any of the other storms out there. David, your thoughts?
Well, the number one system, it's a mess compared to 24 hours ago. And it still needs close monitoring. Its life is far from being over. And Nathan, that area of interest in the Southwest Indian Ocean, the Bureau of Meteorology still has it as a shallow tropical low. And that's about all I have on that system.
And our team have had it down as a tropical storm for over a day now in the South Indian Ocean. We'll need to have a look at that at some point. I'll try and get some quick imagery and see if I can get that, because I know Joey's busy looking in Taipei. So I'm just going to see if I can get my screen to show some of what's going on. I imagine it's not going to be a tropical storm for much longer. It's going to get swept away very soon. In fact, it's probably...
It doesn't look good.
It doesn't look great. We'll get it on the screen in just a moment. But in the meantime, we're looking at the effects of Hinnamnor in Taipei. The ironic thing about this storm right now is that even though it's closest to the Japanese islands, well, I'm not sure if it is anymore actually, but it's delivering its worst conditions right now to northern Luzon in the Philippines, with heavy bands of rain moving through there right now from north to south, and signal 1 warnings in effect for some areas in the far northeast. Taiwan has a strong wind warning across its entirety, and there are gale advisories for the southern Ryukyu Islands, and still in effect for the Daito Islands as well. We're struggling to get proper imagery on my screen.
We do have some questions.
Sorry? Oh, yeah, go on. Go ahead.
So this is from Tropical Storm Alton. Would those -70 cloud tops come back when Hinnamnor strengthens? And another question, can Hinnamnor intensify to a Category 4 again?
It's such a tough question now. JTWC thinks it's possible. I don't think it will anymore. I think it will still get to Category 3. But I can't see this getting back to Category 4.
Oh, and we have another question from Kate. Didn't Kate. When will the shear erase, and how long will it take to build back a full eye wall? And how big could the eye be this time if it flares?
If it does build back an eye wall, the chances are it will be a huge one, I reckon. But I can't even contemplate it at the minute. There's no sign of life right now. And I don't know where it's going to start and how it's going to manage to build it back. It's going to be a tough one. Maybe, well, we're going to find out over the next 24 to 48 hours. We're still just quite taken aback at just the extent that it has weakened in such a small amount of time. You don't normally see eye walls just completely collapse on radar like what we've witnessed today. Certainly not of a storm in this position over good sea surface temperatures. It's obviously being done in a little bit by wind shear at 30 knots, but it's not 60 knots, and you probably expect this from like 40 or 50 knots of wind shear. It's 30, which is unfavourable, but the storm should be doing better than this. We're obviously thankful that it isn't, but it means that our forecasts have not really verified. We expected it to hold itself together a lot better than it has done. And with 24 hours of stalling still to go, it might get worse for the storm yet. Here's some some infrared imagery of the tropical storm in the southwest Indian Ocean. Not looking so good in those latest frames. Unfortunately, this is all I can show you right now, but I think Joey has it up.
And I have some
To the rescue there.
news, Nathan, on
Go
that
ahead.
one. Mateo, France, the Labour Union has it. No low pressure system is currently present over the southwest Indian Ocean, but a suspicious area is present, and there is a risk of formation of a moderate tropical storm for the next 5 days.
I think they're a bit late to it, though. I think it's about to surrender.
Yeah.
The tropical disturbance is currently present in the northeast of the basin, more than 3,000 kilometres from Reunion, far from any inhabited land. There is still a low risk, less than 30%, that this low will become a moderate tropical storm during the next night after a definitive filling phase from tomorrow.
So there it is. The closest point of land, I think, is still the Cocos Islands, to the east by a few hundred miles, and eventually Diego Garcia towards its northwest. And that's pretty much all we need to know about that tropical storm right now. There's everyone in the chat. That's where I'm looking there right now. And there is Hinnamnor once again, but let's go and look at... Oh, where was I going to go? Someone was asking about 94L, so we'll show you back to the imagery of it again, and it's looking pretty damn poor. I think they're asking whether it would form. Yeah, my answer to that is no.
Is that the Cabo Verde one?
Yeah, and that's becoming a quite confident forecast by this point.
Another question about that system we posted. Short-lived tropical cyclone near Cabo Verde forecast is over? Question mark?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. In 10 minutes time, we'll have a look at all of the GFS 18Z model run across the whole world out to 16 days. The premier best place to take a look at the GFS model, your one-stop shop, in 10 minutes time. I wish we could look at other models, but unfortunately we can't. Christian, there, we can hear you typing. You might want to sort that out. But also another comment here, what intensity would we give Hinnamnor if we didn't know its intensity? Well, that's the thing right now. It barely looks like a typhoon. You could say you might get away with calling that a high-end tropical storm with how terrible it looks right now. We obviously know better, and it is much stronger. It'll take a much longer time for the winds to wind down to match its looks.
Yeah.
It's a shocking image, though.
So...
There is, like, something interesting. Even as you said, shear at 30 knots, high SSTs, high ocean heat content. What is causing the system to really degrade as much as it is?
You don't think it's shear alone, then, I take it?
Well, like, as you said, 30 knots of shear is high, but it doesn't look... I don't think 30 knots of shear would really obliterate the system as much as it has to where its eye is nearly exposed.
Well, maybe we're forgetting a missing link. 13W. Could be the missing link. Did 13W get in there and completely destroy this storm from the inside out? I don't know.
We wouldn't be able to.
Well, that was about to be the voice of Patrick, but we just lost you there as you just about to start.
I'm here.
Welcome aboard. Your thoughts on Hinnamnor right now?
They basically had going since free time.
Nope, it's not working.
Yeah.
It's really not working right now with your signal there. We'll check back with you in a bit. Let's take a look once again at Danielle, which is looking, into my eyes, Joey, even better on every new frame here as night falls. Well, fell a little while ago over the storm. This is probably not up to date, actually. Let me try and get the most up to date version. What was that?
That's a dog.
It does look like it is trying to clear out an eye, though. So I can definitely understand why the why National Hurricane Centre, with its really stalling forecast, does show it becoming a hurricane.
There we are, the new imagery. Wow. Very decent on satellite imagery. Impressive.
Looks like those upper cloud tops have wrapped all around the system now, which is definitely an improvement.
Definitely see it becoming a hurricane.
Might be trying to form an eye.
Oh, I think it's already getting one. It's on its way to hurricane status. I wouldn't be surprised if I wake up tomorrow morning and it is.
It might be hurricane status by the 11 p.m. update, to be honest with you. I think it's rapidly intensifying. Just based on the fact that it's moving so slow over.
That soon. I don't know about that. I think NHC will be conservative and they'll probably go 70 miles per hour.
But
if they go 80, I would most likely assume that Danielle might be rapidly intensifying. But 70 is a good estimate. 70 is definitely a good estimate. But if they go hurricane status.
Funnily enough, the HWRF model, which we all know and love, had this becoming quite a significant hurricane with annular characteristics, close to the Azores, I believe, which would definitely be a feat for it to get to, but we'll have to see how it develops from here on out.
We do have a question from Tropical Storm Alton again. Will there be a recon to Tropical Storm Danielle? And another question as well.
Doubt it.
How strong would Danielle be before the sea surface temperatures fall off a massive cliff?
Well,
NHC has a 100-mile-an-hour peak at this time based on the forecast cone, so I would expect it to at least peak at least 95.
It's when it comes to recon, the system's way too far out to sea for recon to be able to get to it. It'd just be too costly. The planes probably can't necessarily reach. Well, they probably can, but as I said, it would be a bit too costly. And for a system that doesn't look like it will be affecting too many land areas, there's not much use for it. And to the second question, it does look like it could get quite strong, but even then, after the sea surface temperatures do drop off a bit, the system will probably be a lot more resilient than other tropical cyclones that we see, simply because it will be aided by something called baroclinic forcing, which is to do with the upper atmosphere, and so go on.
Oh, sorry. Continue. I'll wait for you to be finished.
But yeah, it does seem. But as Patrick did say, the National Hurricane Center forecasting a peak of 100 miles per hour. That could change. But yeah, Patrick.
I also find it very, very interesting that it isn't an intense storm at all. It has a pressure of 1,005 millibars, which, now, to be fair, in higher latitudes of the Atlantic Ocean, obviously you could expect that. However, I am very surprised that this is a now not so intense storm at 1,005 millibars for almost a hurricane, which would be very surprising to see. However,
well, it'll
yeah, I
be
just wanted to point
deepening
out
now.
Mm.
We've also got SST map here from...
deepen as it intensifies.
Oh, cut you off there because your signal went. From Sims right now. The yellow zone, that's 27 degrees. The green zone there, 26 degrees. Quite a basic map there. But you can see there that SST's sea surface temperatures are good enough up to day 4. So basically 4 days to show what it's made of.
Definitely see it becoming a category 2 in that time.
That's the forecast. National Hurricane Center forecasting a category 2 out of it.
If it continues to actually keep its speed relatively slow before it turns to the northeast, I would not be surprised if it even gets close to major hurricane status, but I don't think it's going to get that high. But if it were to go over 100 miles an hour, I would say at the very most conservative 105 or 110. I don't think it's going to go all the way up. Unless if something wonky happens, but obviously anything can happen, so we have to monitor the future forecasts.
Well, it's models time, so here comes my massive monologue on what we've got from the GFS model right now across the world. At the moment, this PC is running very slow and things are breaking down left, right and center, so hopefully it stays together long enough for us to go through this. First thing you see in the Atlantic is quite clearly Danielle, which is very easily discernible towards the northern part of the basin. GFS 18Z initializes it, and it's broken on me. No, we're back. 18Z initializes it there at 65 miles per hour, which is interesting. So then, what happens to it? Is it similar to the National Hurricane Center's forecast? It does a little loop, or 2 loops, or maybe 3 loops, and becomes a hurricane for quite a while, and then eventually gets caught up and goes northeastwards. And then what happens? The Azores quite nearly gets tropical storm force winds, but doesn't. Turning post-tropical here, but still looking very good. And then it's gone by this point. But it's still an extratropical cyclone. And it's pushing up towards Ireland later on there. That's on the 13th. That's 11 days out. Still with storm force winds for Ireland, but not tropical. What happens behind that then? Well, you saw it there. Invest 91L. We're still giving a high chance of development. GFS thinks that it will eventually form, probably not until the 5th. And how long have we been tracking this one now? It's outrageous. And it's been forecasted to do something time and time and time again. Will we ever get to see it become a tropical storm? There it goes. Hurricane now, south of Bermuda, clear of Bermuda. And then off it goes, northeast, category 2, maybe category 3. Out to sea, but then it's turned east there. And looks like it goes south of the Azores, still a category 3. Ophelia vibes there. Then what happens? It's giving tropical storm force winds to Portugal. Could still be a TS there. And landfall in Portugal, turning post-tropical. Good lord.
Oh,
That's on the 13th as well. The same day that the remnants of Danielle will hit Ireland.
wow.
Okay, well that's quite fascinating.
Doing a little collab there.
It is a collab, my gosh. And the Invest 94L, let's see what happens to this one. Anything? Nope, GFS has given up on it.
Very good.
Let's check the open Atlantic for long range to see what happens after that, if anything. Looks like there's something out west. We'll watch that in a moment. Let's go closer in on the western part of the Atlantic, the area that matters for the US audience, of course. So, what happens here? There's a tropical storm that forms on the 9th. That's 7 days out. So, something that could be watched. A homegrown system that forms just off Tampa Bay. And hangs around there for a little bit. Moves inland. Quite weak. and then off the US East Coast and becomes another tropical storm again out at sea. Pretty straightforward. The Eastern Pacific then, we've got this Tropical Depression 11, which the GFS quite conclusively has as a tropical storm here, although it doesn't look like a full circulation. Well, let's see where it goes. There it is, quite clearly a tropical storm, and a stronger one there, passing Baja California. And it doesn't last very long. Out it goes. The next system, you already saw that there briefly. There it is, a hurricane threat possibly for the western coast of Mexico. And longer range, moving into the Gulf of California. And there's a landfall. I think that might be Nayarit or Sonora province in Mexico. Category 1 or 2 landfall. So that might be something to watch out in the longer range. Days 5 to 10. Super long range, anything else? The answer is no. Central Pacific, any sign of life? No.
Nope.
The Western Pacific obviously is the most important area right now with Hinnamnor. And here it is initializing on the GFS run as a strong Category 3. With how much it's weakening, I'm not sure how much faith we're going to put into this forecast. It stalls there for over 24 hours and manages to intensify a bit whilst it does so, and then off it goes again as a Category 4 briefly, I think, and certainly a Category 4 after it passes Miyakojima into the East China Sea, and then the typhoon wind field balloons up, becomes twice the size of Taiwan, and delivers a Category 3 landfall on the southeastern coast of South Korea. If that happens, that would be the first time and only other time that a Category 3 has made landfall in South Korea since Typhoon Sarah in 1959. Still a lot of uncertainty about that, especially watching the storm today and how weak it's looking. We'll have to see. No certainty about that, but look at the size of the wind field. Even if it's a mere tropical storm at that point, the wind field will still be that large or nearly so, and all of those areas will get tropical storm force winds, and it won't mean too much for the rain totals either, which we'll show you in a little bit. Really high values. What's after that? In its wake, another system is now forming on the GFS right over those islands, and where's that going? That goes south and then it goes east. Goodness me, what's going on? And that's a typhoon, a compact one headed for Japan, and that's after another one there moves through the Tokyo area. So it's all going for Japan next week if that happens, but that is all long range. You saw it for yourself. That's a pretty crazy scenario. What about further south then? In the deep tropics of the Western Pacific, any other activity? Yes, there's a brief tropical storm there for Vietnam, and that is 5 or 6 days out, so that's something to monitor that could happen. Its remnants survive into the East China Sea as well there. Nothing in the super long range. Indian Ocean, North Indian Ocean. Yesterday it was forecasting 2 simultaneous storms in the Bay of Bengal. Today it's just one. Nearly hurricane strength. Landfall there on the 11th. It initiates on the 7th, so that's 5 days. Could be something to monitor later on. South Indian Ocean, we're watching that tropical storm. Surely it doesn't have long left. There it is getting ripped apart. And GFS shows a second system that might show a small chance of forming later on within the 5-day period. Doesn't do much else. South Pacific, anything on the off chance there? Doesn't look like it. And we'll leave it at that. Let's check the rainfall values again from the GFS model from Hinnamnor, and we'll actually look at some of the other areas as well. This is out to 7 days. Take a look at what the rainfall totals show. Anytime now. There it is. So Taiwan, we're still looking at a further. This is on top of what we've seen already. 10 inches maybe of extra rainfall, maybe 11 inches over the mountains of Taiwan. That's over 250 millimeters. For Taipei, a further 7 inches quite likely, and that is nearly 200 millimeters. For some of the islands in Japan, it's looking pretty bad. For places like Miyakojima, you could be looking at over 20 inches of rain, possibly 24 inches, which is 600 millimeters. Miyakojima, I would say, will be the high point for rain. It's somewhere under here, around about there. Okinawa could still get a further... Where's Okinawa here? It is right there. Around about 12 or 13 inches quite possibly there for Okinawa. So you're certainly not done with the rain yet, by a long shot. East coast of China, some areas here around Ningbo. Up to 5 inches possible there, which is over 100 millimeters. Shanghai, not so much, maybe 2 inches. Could get tropical storm force gusts and briefly tropical storm sustained winds. The main islands of Japan don't look too bad for rainfall, but the southern coast of Kyushu could get some localized high amounts, and the islands offshore to the west will get more. South Korea, high amounts of rain. There's that big swathe in the northern part of the country now, getting up beyond 15 inches, which is pushing 400 millimeters. Huge amounts of rain for the northern part of South Korea possible. These forecasts will continue to change. Keep monitoring them closely. And now let's go to the Pacific, East Pacific side. Look at this rain track from that potential next tropical cyclone, the one in the later part. Very high amounts of rain for the coast of Mexico. Up to 12, 13 inches there for the southeastern regions. Further towards the west around Colima, around 18 to 19 inches possible in 1 or 2 areas there along the coast. And then further up in those areas, I think it's Sonora by that point up there, around 14 or 15 inches possibly inland by the end of day 7, if that transpires. That's a lot of rain for that area, and that would cause significant flooding. You can quite clearly see the track of that next storm and Danielle, obviously only shipping interests, but just an interesting point of order there. 26 inches possibly in a little area there where Danielle is likely to stall quite a bit before the tail moves off towards the northeast. Fascinating stuff on tonight's models, Joey.
Yeah, definitely concerning for Miyakojima and South Korea and the mountains of Taiwan when it comes to rainfall from Hinnamnor. Definitely something to be looking out for if you are in those areas.
And we'd like to thank Walked Jungle 777 for your support this evening. Thanks for watching us tonight, and hopefully we're doing a good job with all of our coverage. We're left with this satellite imagery whilst we get ready to finish our streaming for tonight. When we are done, we will have we'll be basically, what we can do on YouTube now is that when we finish the stream, we can redirect all the viewers to our automated feed, which is running all the time, just in case you wanted to watch something else when we're done. And that shows you all the latest satellite imagery live. So I think that's quite nice. But the more I look at this satellite imagery, it is still capitulating, and you just feel that any minute now there's going to be some big burst of convection and something's really going to start going again with this storm, because it's hard to fathom that an ex-category 5, one that was a category 4 24 hours ago and even 18 hours ago, can fall this far this fast. And when you look at those latest satellite images, it's barely got convection over its center now. Let's go back to visible. And you will barely see that it has got almost an exposed... I mean, look at that water vapor imagery.
Oh, wow.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's really degrading itself now.
Shocking.
Try that visible imagery. doesn't look so bad on there, but you can't really tell the cloud. Well, you can still see it there. It is now partially exposed.
It looks like dry air is about to enter that storm any minute now on water vapor.
This is obviously very good news. The storm is weakening at a rapid rate.
Very
And
rapid,
something that is wholly unexpected for what's happened in the last 24, 48 hours.
yeah.
Shocking.
We knew it would weaken and it would stall, but it's happening this way so fast. What a mess. But don't take your eye off the ball. Even if it weakens to a weak or moderate tropical storm, it will still be a big rainmaker. It will be enormous in size. And it still has the opportunity of 3 or 4 more days of potential re-strengthening time. But right now, we got to tell you what it is right now. What we can only go off what we see before us, and that is a storm that is losing its convection and is now partially exposed. And when we talk about partially exposed storms, usually those are storms that are fighting for their life for tropical storm status, never mind a Category 2 typhoon at this point.
We do have a question.
Yes.
From Justin Wilson. Do you think that Danielle's a hurricane at the moment?
No, it's too soon. But it's on its way.
Yeah, I think it's close currently, maybe about 65 to 70 miles an hour sustained, but definitely not hurricane status as of now. We'll see what the National Hurricane Center say in the next update, which I believe is soon.
In 2 hours.
Yeah, okay. So not too soon, but...
Zach Phillips says, do you think Danielle will become a Category 2 or 3 hurricane? If the cone shifts west, could Nova Scotia, New Brunswick and Newfoundland get hit by hurricane force winds? It's certainly not going over there. Don't worry about that. Yeah. It's headed for the sea. If anywhere, it's the Azores. I don't think that's likely either, the more I've been looking at that. Super says answer this hello, so I guess I'll just say
questions
hello.
Immature.
Well, they pinged us and I'll just say hello. But we are about to finish up here on our live tropical weather bulletin. We do tropical weather bulletins every evening if you're new to our coverage. So you can check them out on our channel. Subscribe if you haven't already and you'll get all of those latest updates. We'll be finishing shortly and we'll throw you back to the automated stream, which will show you the live imagery of Typhoon Hinnamnor as it continues its struggle onwards south of the Yayama and Miyakojima Islands of Japan. And at this point, I'll say good night to our team, and now let's take a look. Good night, and now let's take a look at what happened on this day in the world of storms, going back in time. If it works. Well, this time it was in 1935. None other than the Labor Day typhoon, which struck the Florida Keys with an enormous amount of ferocity. Winds of over 180 miles an hour or higher. Can't remember how much it was now. And a central pressure of 892 millibars. Still to this day, the strongest US landfall ever. Well then, in 2022, the next name on the Atlantic hurricane season naming list now is Earl. In the Eastern Pacific, we're still waiting a little bit longer for Javier, and in the Central Pacific, the next name is still, unsurprisingly, Hone. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Muifa. The North Indian Ocean will see Sitrang sooner or later. And in the Southern Hemisphere, the next name on the list in the Australian region is Darian. The Southwest Indian Ocean, we're still waiting for Ashley, and the South Pacific, Harley. That's all for now. We'll be back with more coverage and tropical weather bulletin tomorrow night.